scale of 1 to 100, how many fragments of silicon would you give that?
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me as always are Petty and Gollix. Let us get to the news, such as it is. Gollix, why don't you start us off this week?
Well, we had a company outing today that was nice, and it was nice to not have to do actual work, although, of course, that doesn't reduce the amount of the work that I have to do that needs to be done, so I'm going to be... I was working a little bit harder the last couple of days, and will be working hard to try and finish everything tomorrow, but it was nice to get some time off.
Paid time off.
Yes, that too. Plus, free food. Let's see. Yesterday, Petty was streaming some Digimon World 3 with Ogre, and I was there too, because the time before that when they did it, I was in the chat, and
it's one of those I keep
no one's watching the chat a lot of the time, so...
Well, and it's also one of those, I keep forgetting that you're also a Digimon fan. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Hey,
Gollix forget that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, right, Gollix. Hey, do you want to join us in our little escapades?
Yeah, I can't promise I'll always be available because it depends on what else is going on in the evening, but I had a good time doing that.
You and Ogre help fill my dead air.
Uh-huh. And let's see. This weekend is the local nerd convention, and I'm probably just going to be going to check it out after work on Friday. See if I can pick up some stuff and maybe do a pickup game of Digimon or two, depending on who's there in the card game area. I think that's about it, and I don't think I have any big news video game-wise. I've been actually having some trouble setting aside time to play video games lately, just because it hasn't been on priorities. We've been working on some character building stuff for Pathfinder, so that's part of what I've been doing instead. And I think that's about all I got.
Okay.
So it's my turn?
Yep.
Well, where the hell do I begin?
Oh, boy.
Well, you already know about part of this, about my mom losing her job.
Right, I saw that post.
Let me find it. His days are weird.
Still, oh boy.
Yeah.
How dare you not do a perfect job of doing two people's jobs?
That office is supposed to have 3 people in it.
Okay.
So, yeah, on the 20th, my mom was fired from her job at the prosthetic clinic. Her coworker was actually out for almost 2 months because she had a heart attack, and then they found she had a blood clot in her leg. And I guess the clinic was expecting my mom to work like some sort of superhuman god and run an office scheduling people every 15 minutes and then also be up to date on all paperwork. So the 2 days after her coworker comes back, they fire mom and leave this coworker who just had a blood clot removed from her leg after having a heart attack to run the office by themselves. The funny part, the next day, my mom had to go back to the clinic because she had an appointment to get a wrist brace because it was through she still has the insurance there for I believe the rest of the month. And she apparently they canceled all the Friday appointments. So, because mom had personally scheduled appointments every 15 minutes Friday, they canceled almost all of them, so that the mom's, I guess, former coworker wasn't being overwhelmed. So they wouldn't offer this to mom of canceling people so she could get work done, administrative office work stuff done. But it's just kind of dumb. So now we're back helping her job hunt because she still has some of the money from her when she worked at the hospital, her workers' comp settlement. So we're not in super desperate need, but at the same time, it's kind of not good if we just dump all that. And also tomorrow, my sister, mom, and dad are heading to Montana for my grandmother's funeral, so I get to watch the house. So, hooray! Lots and whole lot of nothing going on. Look, I'm in my 30s. I'm not exactly a party animal, all right? The physical disabilities don't help with that.
Yeah, I was about to say, when were you ever a party animal?
I mean, fair. What, Gulix?
I didn't say anything, I don't
sounded like
think.
you said something. But yeah,
Sorry.
so I get to take care of the kitties and then jump in the pool whenever I want. Unfortunately, it's looking like we're going to be having thunderstorms most of the weekend.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. As far as gaming goes, Friday, I'm kind of glad we don't have a podcast because I'm going to be playing the Final Fantasy XIV expansion. I'm thinking about streaming it. It really depends when I get online and how bad the server issues are trying to get on. Because if it's going to be 2 hours of me trying to log in, that doesn't exactly make for a good streaming experience.
I mean, depends on your perspective.
I mean, fair, because this can either go like one of three ways. How it happened with the fourth expansion, where everything was borked because there were so many people online. It could go perfectly fine, and just another day playing the game. Or it could be so fucked that they could have to stop selling the game for a few weeks like they did with the previous expansion. Yeah. But yeah, if it's too borked, I can always see about doing some Digimon or something, because having other things to do is fun. And
those are much less reliable than an MMO, or much less reliant on stuff than an MMO.
Yeah. The Digimon World 3, I guess, stream play is going on a brief hiatus, at least till Ogre and I finish the new expansion story. It could be like a week or two, if that. We just want to, get that done and then make sure our characters are ready for when raids start up, like next month. So yeah, once we're all, caught up and stuff with that, then I'll see when we can start doing Digimon stream stuff again. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
I guess that means it's my go.
Yep.
Let's see. I suppose the big news this week for me, it hasn't actually happened yet. Tomorrow I have to get up early to head down to Hudson in order to pick up some food that my brother ordered because he's not going to be able to go. He's going to be working during that time. So, I have to go and do that in his stead.
Yep.
Kind of important because it's food provisions for him and the fam for the next 2 weeks.
Right.
So, also, he did just get me a bunch of Monster Energy drinks on discount, so
Oh man.
kind of owe him. Let's see. In terms of gaming, I have been bounding around titles this week after the Mummy Demastered annoyed me enough to quit playing. I'm like, the problem with that game is the enemy selection. Because it's like, what if we took the most annoying enemies in Castlevania, Medusa heads, Fleamen, bats, birds, and just populated the levels with them. Just, maybe not that level of annoyance, but a lot of small annoying creatures. And also, like, there was the endlessly respawning zombie. Like, you kill one immediately pops back up. It just made traversal not difficult, just obnoxious. Like,
Yeah,
the game
I can see
wasn't
that.
difficult. Like, the game wasn't difficult or anything. It's just it just became a chore to move around from place to place. I had similar problems with another game I played this week, Phantom Brave. Like, okay, I can see what you were trying to do here, because, like, Phantom Brave, if you don't know what this game's trying to do, it's a strategy RPG, but it's like, it's not on a grid or a hex. It's actually using 360 degrees of freedom, which on the surface is interesting, but I get maybe because this game was originally a PS2 game, it's like, it's really finicky to actually confirm things. Like using an analog stick is like, it's call this small problems that add up to mega frustration.
Yeah.
I also didn't care for the whole phantom thing where, you can summon your troops, but like for only, say, 5 turns. It's kind of endemic to the entire stratagem of the game, but it's like, I didn't care for that kind of timer, so dropped it after a couple hours. Like I said, it's just been exploring a couple of, games for my collection, like Strafe, which is a boomer shooter by way of roguelike. It lasts about 2 hours. I'm like, I had about as much patience for this as I did a lot of roguelikes. That is to say, about 2 hours worth. I'm like, Piku Niku, interesting platformer, until its charm wore away. Like I said, just like a couple of, a bunch of games that I played for a few hours. Sometimes that happens. I'm like, right now I'm about to explore the Halo Master Chief Collection, but I haven't really worked out time for it today. Things and stuff going on, especially on a show day.
Right.
Anyway, probably more on that, provided it runs properly. So, anyway, with that in mind, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week are Chelsea Blasko and Adam Hart of Iron Galaxy Studios.
Hi there.
Howdy, howdy. Thanks for
Hello.
having us.
Not a problem. Thank you for being here. Right, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all that business. And we do this by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Oh,
Chelsea,
wow.
go ahead first.
Sure. What got me interested in video games was partially the fact that I didn't have them at my house, right? So they were something I had to go somewhere else to get, like my cousin's house, or I had to accidentally get stuck at the neighbor's house to play Donkey Kong. I also was kind of I was really into Oregon Trail too, and just kind of learning how to do basic coding. And so, at a personal level, that's kind of what got me excited about video games, was just kind of that, yeah, they were something I didn't have. So, I wanted to find them somewhere else. And then at a professional level, I honestly fell into it backwards. I had no idea that people, how games were made, let alone that games were made in Chicago. And so I just really took a chance. And I heard about an opening at EA Chicago, kind of short-lived studio, and went in and interviewed and was brave enough to come back for a second interview. And here I am 20 years later, still doing games.
Adam?
Yeah, I probably it all traces back to me being 6 years old and my dad taking me to video game arcades, watching him play pinball and Ghostbusters and Galaga and all kinds of stuff from that era. And then, around I think age 8 or 9, I got a Nintendo Entertainment System. I got the Power Pack with the power pad and the light gun and the cartridge that had all 3 games on it: the Mario, the Duck Hunt, and the Track and Field, which was awesome. And from that moment on, I don't know why, but I was also interested in making games, and I was doodling game designs in my notebooks through all of school, and spent a very long time trying to get friends together to try and make games together. Some moderately fun tabletop designs came out of that, but no video games really ever were produced by me and my friends, despite a decade of trying. But around when I was doing some Games Press stuff, I was the editor-in-chief of ShowRecan.com at the time, and I kind of got in touch with Dave Lang and Iron Galaxy. I had already started working on Divekick with my fiance and a couple friends out of my apartment, and that was the first game that I had really gotten going. Coincidentally, I got into the industry through other means, through just being a prolific fighting game person and Iron Galaxy needing help with some of their fighting game ports. It all kind of serendipitously came together, and then we ended up all working together to make Divekick. So, yeah.
Did you have a Rumble Pack though, Keats? Did you have a Rumble Pack? Yeah.
Not for NES. That didn't exist for NES.
No, okay.
I had it for
It wasn't too much later though. Yeah.
Yeah. I did have the Rumble Pack for N64.
I figured.
I remember the Rumble Pack. It was very bulky.
And ran on batteries that did not last very long. So,
Yep.
Not the best.
It was one of the meanest things I ever did in my life. My little brother wanted a Rumble Pack so bad for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he finally got one. And like my family didn't have a lot of money, so getting a Rumble Pack was pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And I kicked him in the back and said, "Do you feel the rumble now?"
Oh, wow. That's so mean.
So that was a pretty hot big sister move, right?
I have nothing to say to that. It's so mean.
It was pretty mean. I told you
Really
it was
mean.
one of the meanest things I've ever done. Pretty bad. Pretty shameful moment right there.
Well then, right. So, how long have you two been at Iron Galaxy?
I've been at Iron Galaxy 14 years. I was actually employee number 13. So I came on as the second non-programmer, one of the first 2 women. I came on as a producer, and we were really small back then, right? We were already working on a variety of projects and already dipping our toes in the fighting game world. But yeah, we were really small. So yeah, I'm going on year 14 now.
I'm at 12 and a half. I I think I was employee number 32 or 33 or somewhere around there. And it was my first gig in the actual industry and everything. So very, very intimidating walking into a room of such incredibly talented people who many, almost all of which, very few exceptions, are still at Iron Galaxy today. And I'm privileged to call a lot of them my close friends. So it's been really awesome.
That's good to hear. And what positions do you occupy now at Iron Galaxy?
Yeah, I am currently the co-CEO at Iron Galaxy. Yeah, I wasn't that back during the dive kick times for sure, but that's me today.
Yeah, when I came on, I was the second designer at the studio. We didn't really have like titles. We were kind of opposed to titles for a long time, but I guess today you would call me, a senior or principal designer, depending on your perspective. And I usually do lead designer type work on the projects that I'm on.
Okay. And I suppose a pertinent question to ask at this point is, how does Iron Galaxy compare now to when you first started?
Oh my goodness.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's been fun actually thinking about some of the older stories recently. And I was actually taking a look at photos I took when we were working on Dive Kick and back in the early days. I mean, the early days were a lot more DIY. It was like we'd have a chore day and I had to attach handles to conference room doors, right? We drove our own truck and may or may have not been legal to the different conventions. We built our own, we built our own,
Display
all
kiosks, right?
all of our own display kiosks, and it was just super DIY. I mean, at early days, Dave Lang, our founder, would walk around, and if you had food on your desk, he would just eat it.
That's a funny story, actually. My first day at work, we baked cookies. Me and my wife baked cookies. Brought them in on my first day of work. I had a big bag of chocolate chip cookies that were made hours ago. My intention was, these are cookies for the studio. I walked in. I said, Dave Lang greeted me. I said, "Hey, here's some cookies I brought." He goes, "Oh, thanks," and he takes the cookies. He didn't share them with anybody.
Yeah. It was definitely. We also had in our second office, there was only one restroom and there was a long hallway to the restroom. So we had to have these rules like, hey, nobody better close the door because we better know, like, when you're not in there, you needed to leave it open. So nobody needed to wait extra, right? You needed to know you could get in there and get out of there. Also, I have to admit, like, we just opened, we're going to do a grand opening for our Nashville office actually tomorrow. And our first office move, I called Dave and I was like, "Dave, is the move done over the weekend?" He was like, "Yeah, it's fine. Everything's good." I walked in on Monday morning. It was a pile of computers in the middle of the floor. There was conduit laid
Sounds about
where
right.
the conduit was actually trapping the drill. You could no longer remove the drill because the wire was like under the conduit. I actually cried. I cried for a moment. I regained my composure and I put my desk back together. Now we have a fancy office, so it's pretty big juxtaposition. I had to bring my own soap for a while. It was pretty like just figure it out in the first 25 people or so.
We have an IT department now too, so
Yeah, we've grown up a lot. We were
Yes.
still really in the toddler phases back in the dive kick days.
for sure.
Is David Lang still with Iron Galaxy?
Yeah,
He
he's at
sure is.
C3PO.
Yeah, much to my chagrin. No, he is. No, I love Dave. Yes, he is with us. In fact, he's even down here in Nashville right now, and he's going to be using those giant pair of scissors to cut our ribbon for our grand opening tomorrow.
That's fun.
Oh, neat. Yeah, I remember David did our program back in 2013 talking about Dive Kick. Like, Brandon, I can't remember much of that since, we were talking 11 years ago, but
Yeah.
good to hear that
Sure.
he's still good. And with the Nashville office, is that your fourth or fifth branch of Iron Galaxy?
It's technically our third. So we've got offices in Chicago, Orlando, now Nashville, and we've got a pocket of folks in Austin, Texas.
That's what it was. And what is the Nashville office being geared up for?
You know, we do distributed development across all of our studios. We've
Yep.
always done it that way. So it's not like, hey, Nashville's the mobile studio, or they only work on fighting games or whatever. Any project, anyone from any office can work on. We've done that since before COVID, because then you don't have to really worry about, like, you know, where are the people? It's just who is best for whatever project or role or tasks or whatever coming down the pipe. But I will say one thing that is kind of special about the Nashville office is we can tap into a lot of intern talent, a lot of young people who are coming out of universities, getting computer science degrees. They didn't realize that even being in games could possibly be an option for them. And we've been able to convert a lot of these students into full-time employees. So that's been pretty awesome.
Neat. How big is Iron Galaxy overall these days?
Yeah, we are about 300 people across all the locations.
Wow. Like, Wikipedia needs to update its numbers.
Yeah, I don't know who's in charge of that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And anyway, I suppose going back to Dive Kick, given the prominence on display here, we should talk a bit about it. Especially since that's one of your most notable original works, as they're called. For the uninitiated, what is Dive Kick? It's a pretty special fighting game, from what I remember.
Yeah, it's a hit
kids, go
indie
ahead.
video game project. You know, very popular, very huge seller. Changed the world, I would say. Would you agree, Chelsea?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed the world in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You know what it did? It made my hands red.
The story of the origin of this game is you know, I was playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which has some really, really mean dive kicks in it, Doctor Doom, Wolverine, etc. And just jokingly said to my friend while we were playing at like 3 in the morning, and you know how it is at 3 in the morning, everything you say is funny. It doesn't matter if it's not funny at all. And I said, let's make a game called Dive Kick. The characters will be dive and kick. The only buttons will be dive and kick. The only moves will be diving and kicking. And my friend thought that was really, really funny. And if it hadn't been 3 a.m., maybe he wouldn't have. But his reply after laughing was, I think I could make that. And then we started drawing up design documents. And then my wife woke up in the morning, and she's an artist. And I was like, hey, you're drawing a video game. And she's groggily was like, oh, okay. And she had no idea how much work she was actually signing up to do, because it's a lot.
Oops.
Yeah, and at the time, I had already been trying to make games for a long time. I was also running a large tournament out of Chicago called Ultimate Fighting Game Tournament, which at the time was, one of probably the 5 or 6 largest fighting game tournaments in the United States. And I like to do things at that tournament to attract a crowd in a way that wasn't focused on like the best players and exhibitions and showing that off. Just like trying to make it a real fun weekend for anybody of any skill level. Mm-hmm. So, I thought that this game would be a fun attraction, it's a joke game. It's not meant to be super serious. We put it on display there. People could play it and get some laughs out of it. That was the intention. And then as we started building it, we were like, oh, this is actually super fun and hard to stop playing. And we'd have friends over to play test it for an hour, and 13 hours later, I'd have to kick them out of my apartment. And we started to realize we had accidentally kind of made a pretty elegant deconstruction of fighting games, in a way that really distills everything down to just like spacing and getting that one good hit, that one bait. And it became a fighting game that anyone could play. And we showed it at conventions. I had a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, this is the first fighting game that I've been able to play with my significant other. And, we play it for hours, or I play it with my parents or this or that. And I think that's just such a really cool thing that it was able to do.
Yeah, it reminds me, strangely enough, of a PS1 fighting game called Bushido Blade.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay, good. In the sense that, it had one hit or thereabouts combat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's, the joke is that all the characters have 1,000 life and all the dive kicks do 1 billion damage. So you just lose in one hit. But
there's still depth.
there's so much depth.
That's what was awesome. And I mean, when I play fighting games, I'm a real button masher, but even I could build skill in this game, which was super awesome. Made me feel competent, and I was good enough to demo it for other people, right? Where definitely when we worked on KI, that was intimidating. It's so technical, and I definitely could not competently demo KI. I knew what we were doing, right? I knew what the game was about, but yeah, playing, no, so good.
Killer Instinct's kind of the, if not complete polar opposite, just about in terms of fighting game mechanics and everything in regards to dive kick.
Yeah, it's definitely the opposite end of the spectrum. It's a pretty complex game. There are a lot of really cool systems in there that are easy to grasp, and there's a combo assist mode, so you can get in there and do some pretty flashy things right away. It also has the unique advantage of being a game in which the easiest combo in the game is also the highest damaging combo in the game, because their breaker system actually allows that to make sense, because that combo happens to also be the easiest to break. Whereas other games need to make sure they kind of make their best combos pretty hard to gate them. KI gets away with the opposite, which is just a really nice approachability thing for KI. But you're right; it is very much a complicated, hardcore fighting game.
Yeah, and because Keats is so versed in all of the technicalities of these much more these harder core fighting games, I think he was uniquely positioned to kind of break all that down for dive kick and make it accessible, because he's coming with I don't know if I've even told Keats this to his face before, but he's coming with all of this knowledge, right, to make this homage and kind of gift for fans.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like I understand the space well enough to work on either end. Our goal is to make something really simple and approachable, like Dive Kick or Rumbleverse, we can do that. If our goal is to make something fabulously complex for the hardcore people like KI, we can do that too. And we can try and mix and match those things while maintaining depth, no matter how simple we need to pull that floor down. And it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge.
I suppose it's important to have that kind of versatility.
Yeah, honestly, I gained it by playing tons and tons of the worst fighting games ever made. I don't know if you're familiar with Mugen, the build your own fighting game engine, but people would make characters for that. I had like 8,000 characters on my old computer, and most of them were just terrible. And learning a lot about what doesn't work is just as important as learning about what does work. If you get into game design, one of the things you'll learn really early is that you're supposed to fail fast. And what that means is that you got to try something, and if it's not working, you got to call it failure and go to the next thing and keep trying. And that's kind of like what Mugen was for me, is I got to see how everybody else messed up and figure out how to not mess up myself when I finally got the opportunity to build something.
Well, I mean, if it was good experience,
it was a great experience, and I laughed very hard.
I mean, the usual story we get on our program is prototyping, or game jam games. So something small, and they build up to, an actual release, which, just kind of standard of the industry now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to try and figure out what the hook of what you're building is before you invest a bunch of money making it pretty and shippable and, polished and all that kind of stuff. So the prototyping phase is really important for sure.
Right. I suppose on the subject of Killer Instinct, How did you end up on that project after, if I'm remembering correctly, season 1, it was Double Helix. They got bought out, and I suppose that left Microsoft in the lurch.
Chelsea, do you want to do the business side of that story?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Yeah, Double Helix had done season 1. They got acquired by Amazon. We had a good relationship with Microsoft because we'd worked on an original IP for them. A little Connect game called Wrecketeer. It also just
I remember
shattered the
that.
world. Yeah, so they knew we'd done that. We had done Street Fighter 3 online edition. We'd done a bunch of work with Capcom bringing Darkstalkers, some other games, to a new audience. And so we had credibility in the fighting game space from doing that work, as well as from releasing Dive Kick and doing all that work on our own, doing all the publishing, doing all the marketing, showing up at E3 and all the shows and doing demos for people, right? And so between the relationship and the credibility that we'd acquired doing these other fighting games, they were willing to give us the chance to take on KI. And it was also super awesome. Honestly, KI is the last game I was allowed to work on hands-on. I was the game director on KI season 2 and 3. And I really miss it. It was a great experience. But yeah, a lot of how, you get jobs or how the stories go, right? Or kind of building those relationships, building credibility in different areas, and then eventually you hope that all comes together.
It also
We can
happens that- go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah, that's certainly relatable. We go through that on this program, and other developers have told us the same thing. Other publishers. So, and I'm guessing Microsoft liked what you did on Killer Instinct.
Yeah.
I would say so, yes.
I mean, we've continued to do some work. Keats, you can talk probably best about our most recent work there.
Yeah, very strange, but the game finished kind of at season 3.5, and we hadn't touched it in 5 years, and then Rumbleverse got sunset, unfortunately. Rest in peace, my friend. And Microsoft came knocking, and they said, "Hey, we want to do an anniversary update." And the main reason they wanted to do that was because a lot of the online services we built the original game around were not modern anymore, and they were causing a lot of headaches over at Microsoft. They were having to do updates themselves to keep the game services running and keep the players happy. And a lot of people are still playing Killer Instinct online every month, like a lot of people, a shocking amount of people. And Microsoft was like, "Hey, you guys know this thing best. You built it with us. We love working with you. You want to come in and fix it up?" So, naturally we said, yes, we'd love to. We started that conversation, and that conversation just started branching. And they were like, let's make this like an anniversary update. Let's add some cool stuff for the players, make them happy. Let's make this a celebration. And, it ended up ballooning a little bit into something we didn't expect, but it was super fun to work on, and just a bizarre, I mean, the whole thing's bizarre, right? Like the idea of Double Helix building this thing and then having to let it go, and then us picking it up and that not being a disaster. That's weird. And then, fast forward, when we finish up and it's time to say goodbye to the game, then 5 years later, we're back on it. That's weird. That doesn't happen either. Even just myself having done a bunch of like scripting on the characters and stuff last year, getting back into the scripts that I helped write, and seeing my own old code and my old comments, and just being like, why did I do that? This comment is not sufficient. I do not know what I was trying to say to feature me here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good because it shows me that I learned a lot and I've grown a lot since then. I wouldn't do it that way anymore.
Totally. And we weren't only taking over a franchise, we were taking over their proprietary engine too. So it wasn't an engine we were familiar with. We had to make sure we knew the lore. We had to make sure we learned the engine. It wasn't just completely straightforward.
Yeah. We're Unreal specialists generally, and the engine they built this on was called Slayer Ed, and that they built it originally to make the Buffy Vampire Slayer game on PS2. So that's cool, but that's an old engine. The good news is that engine is like really good at doing fighting stuff, right? The tool set that was in it made making KI pretty easy, honestly, but it just lacks a lot of the modern amenities you would expect out of today's kind of best engines. Iron Galaxy is good at that, though. We're lots of the smartest engineers in the world are working there. We can jump into somebody else's code base, figure it out, and get moving, and that's what we did.
Indeed. Did Rare have any oversight on this, given that it's their IP?
As far as I'm aware, they didn't have any oversight, but we did occasionally, get love letters from them that said, we love what you're doing. I specifically remember one after we did Rash, our Battletoads guest character, and they were very happy with how that turned out and said it was pretty clear someone on the team was a Battletoads fan. And it wasn't someone, it was several of us. So
there's a shrine to Rash just behind the bathroom, right?
We were very happy to be able to put a Battletoad in the game. It was really fun.
Yeah. And I suppose I should ask this to quash any sort of speculation, because I don't think it's happening, but, I know ever since the update there have been, questions about a sequel to Killer Instinct, but I don't think that's in the works, is it?
We'd be open to whatever Microsoft wants us to do with the IP in the future.
Absolutely.
So it's up to them.
Yep.
Duly noted. Now, in regards to Dive Kick, did you ever explore the idea of a sequel to that game?
I've got ideas.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We've been talking about it recently too, actually, with Dave Lang. Some different ways to update. Definitely throwing ideas around.
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea of some things to try if we get the opportunity. So I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough. It's something that may or may not happen. But hopefully it does, given the success and popularity of the original Dive Kick.
We'll just say the original Dive Kick had only 2 buttons and changed the world. We all agree on that, right? So clearly the next step forward is that it has to have a 3rd button. If we add a 3rd button, I don't see how we don't make billions of dollars.
Like, the 3rd button uses the knee.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I do think though we made a mistake. I do regret not doing a Kickstarter to make the Dive Kick controller, the 2-button controller.
Me too.
It was a super fun experience. Yeah. That was one thing when we're looking back, we're like, yep, should have done it.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were really expensive though for what they were. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Audience.
We would have had like 7 people buy them maybe, but would have been worth it anyway.
Yeah.
It was just, I loved, in my earlier days, I have done a lot of demoing at trade shows. And generally, I am never asked to demo a traditional controller game. I don't really know why. I'm on a skateboard, or I'm doing a Connect game, or I'm slapping buttons all day. So it's like, but on Dive Kick, right, it was like this really good visceral release.
Yeah.
Just slapping buttons, and it just brought like a lot of joy. You get a lot of emotions out. My guinea pigs even played Dive Kick, so that was pretty good.
I don't know if you guys saw
for
those,
everybody.
but we made them with Poppin' Music buttons. So if you're familiar with Poppin' Music, the buttons are quite big.
That's Binami, right?
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think I've seen that in the arcades.
Yeah, they're not cheap. You're talking about one push button, right? You buy, a little Sanwa push button for your arcade joystick. Those are like $2.50 or whatever. Or at least they were back then. I'm sure they're much more now because of inflation. But the Poppin' Music buttons were like $17 a piece.
And we even had somebody in the office in Orlando, though, make a dive kick cabinet.
Yeah.
Better than any of the things we took to shows, like a legit looking cabinet with artwork and everything, which was pretty cool. We'd have competitions in the office. So there was definitely a lot of love and excitement. Really still speaks to that DIY spirit. And I'm even wearing, because I wasn't sure if this was video or not, I'm even wearing my New Angle Dojo vintage t-shirt. So yeah, we had merch. Like we were trying to do it, and we were just a rinky-dink indie outfit at that time.
Well, according to the ad, Dave said very clearly that we were not a rinky-dink indie outfit.
Yeah, he was full of crap.
Yeah, he was.
I'm like, now you're just a very large indie outfit.
True. Fair enough.
I mean, as far as I know, like you're privately owned.
Yep. We continue to be privately owned.
Anyway, so in regards to the original dive kick, have you explored any possibility of bringing it to the current generation of platforms? You know, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch.
Keats is probably crying because he's like, no, we really haven't. And I wish someone would come to me asking for that tomorrow.
It's
never
gonna languish
say
forever
never.
on the Vita, huh?
I don't know.
I mean, did it hit the Vita?
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah, it hit the Vita.
We made what I would characterize as questionable engine choices on Dive Kick just to accommodate our Vita release. And that is probably one of the big reasons why porting it forward isn't the easiest thing either.
Mm.
Yeah, but two people could play it at once in versus mode on the Vita, on one Vita.
Vitas for lovers mode is what we called that. One person would hold the left side of the Vita and use the shoulder button and the D-pad as their dive and kick inputs, and the other person would hold the right side of the Vita and use the shoulder button and one of the face buttons as their dive and kick input. So you could, on the airplane, sitting next to your friend or significant other, play some dive kick all the way to your destination.
Instead
Indeed.
of going to the usual fist fight.
Yeah.
This was pre-COVID flights.
Yes. Cuddling was better then.
I suppose I want to shift focus to another Iron Galaxy original that we haven't talked about yet, and that is Extinction. Which is a very different game than anything that we've talked about here. Instead of being a fighting game, this is like, I guess the best way to put it is an Attack on Titan alike.
Yes. Yep.
So where did this come from?
Basically, we were approached with an idea to make something that was kind of Attack on Titan like. And we said, well, why not? We're always looking to kind of expand our capabilities and take pieces of what we do know how to do and bring them into kind of another genre so that we can continue to expand. And so I think you see that in some of the combat. We did a lot with traversal too. That was a big part of that game. So, but yeah, it wasn't a title that we pitched and came up with the whole idea ourselves. It was brought to us, and we said, "Sure, yeah, let's work on that."
Like, well, it sounds like it was a fun enough experience.
I mean, every single thing that we make is an awesome experience, even if there are challenges or whatever, because kind of like Keats was saying earlier, he looked back and he could see how much he'd improved and like what he had learned from originally working on KI and working on it today. So any experience we have, we're just constantly learning. And that's one of our mantras at Iron Galaxy. Let's keep expanding our capabilities. Let's make things for new consoles. Let's work on different genres so that we just have more to offer.
It's all tools in the toolkit, right? We
Exactly.
did some pretty serious platforming gameplay in Rumbleverse, and we got our start learning how to do that stuff properly on Extinction.
100%.
Interesting. And Rumbleverse, was this yours or was this Epic's?
So the idea, it's for a big humble brag, and just I don't even think I've ever really processed this, but the kernel of the idea was mine, and it was just again like Keith said, what do you come up with at 3 p.m. just goofing around? And that was really similar. I was just in the hotel bar with a few Iron Galaxy folks. We were throwing around ideas like, what do you think we should pitch next? Because we're always pitching things all the time, right? It's just not all those things get made. And I was like, what about wrestling? Shockingly, that idea moved forward and we started to flesh it out a little bit. And then we had a team work on an animatic. In like 3 weeks, we created this animatic to kind of give the real feel, that wrestling, the fun feel of a battle royale, but where you're not just getting picked off, from a sniper far away that you can't see, but that close grappling kind of wrestling with your sibling on the living room floor, right? And it became a real game. And that I think still shocks me to this day. So actually, then we had partnered with Epic to work on to continue to bring Rumbleverse out to the public. But the original idea was ours. Yeah. I can't, it went much further once it left my brain. So I only can take credit for the kernel.
It's still the gestation of the original idea, so that's worth something.
Yeah, but it's 100 other people who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it, putting all their ideas and their time and their effort. And so no game is made by one person ever. Okay, that's not 100% fair. All right, sorry. Occasionally it's a person in their basement making a game, but generally speaking, it's a team.
Yeah, and I'll say one of the nice things about the philosophy at Iron Galaxy is that we are building it as a team. There's not like this idea lockbox where there's one person or a bunch of designers who get to make the ideas and nobody else gets input. We all talk about this stuff with everybody in every department. We listen to everybody's ideas and feedback. We play test the crap out of it. We play the games we're building together constantly, talk about them. The feedback cycle and the communication is all super good. So when Chelsea says there's 100 people who put themselves into this game, that's not a joke. That really is what happens.
No, that makes sense. So this may be a difficult question to answer, but what happened to Rumbleverse? It seemed to sunset well before its time. Am I mistaken in that assertion?
We wish we would have gotten to work on Rumbleverse longer, but unfortunately, with our partnership with Epic, we had to sunset the game. We still hope that's not forever. We still retain the IP, but just unfortunately, it kind of had to end before we got to see everything we wanted to do with it.
Unfortunate, but sounds like, if at all possible, you might push Rumbleverse back into the world.
We'd love to.
No doubt.
I have even my kid would be happy because even my kid can't play it anymore. Mommy, where's Rumbleverse? I'm like, it's sorry, it's gone.
Yeah, it is. It is sad that it's gone, but after wading through the sadness of that happening and trying to look back at it with a more positive viewpoint, we brought something unique to the world. There was no game like it, and that's probably why people miss it so much, is because there's still no game like it, and there may never be again. Which is sad, but also really cool that we got to, spend all that time building something so unique, and that, maybe it wasn't everybody's favorite game, but it is. There are a lot of people out there who Rumbleverse was their favorite game of all time, and those people send us messages all the time, and they desperately want it back. We get emails from them to the company. I get Twitter messages from folks. I'm sure everybody in leadership sees those as well. We see
There's
all the
some
people
love for Rumbleverse in the chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's really, in retrospect, does it hurt that it's gone? Yeah, it does. But also, it's really neat to have been able to touch that many people and, bring those smiles and that joy and that laughter to people in the way that we really wanted to. There's these top plays YouTube channels that just kind of compile Twitch highlights. And those still exist, and you can still go watch them, and you can see the genuine laughter fits and smiles and things that people had playing that game, and that's because the team brought that to those people, and that's awesome. And I don't lose sight of that.
No, I think going back to kind of the original question too of what got you into games in general, it's just part of that being able to bring joy to people. That's what keeps me doing it. We're in a business that is trying to bring people joy. I love that.
Yeah, me too. I always say I like making games, but I love watching people play the games we made. That's the actual thing that I love about it. Seeing everyone's reactions and smiles and laughs is just, that fills me with life. That's the best.
And that's good. That's a good mantra to have in this industry. Like, believe me, we don't see it everywhere, especially these days. But anyway, so shifting focus a bit, I want to talk a bit about your porting capabilities, given that that is a big part of the Iron Galaxy oeuvre. I suppose I should start with one of the biggest recent ports, and maybe you can help clarify a few things. Well, actually, two of them: Metroid Prime Remastered and The Last of Us Part One. I know Iron Galaxy is credited on both of those, but I've heard varying things on how much you all contributed to those projects. So maybe you can clear the air on that.
Yeah, we do a lot of porting for a lot of different partners, and it really depends on what is the partner looking for at any time for us to help with, right? With Metroid, we did a lot of work on that quite a while ago, and so we were excited to see it come out. And we also love working with Naughty Dog on The Last of Us as well. Not everything comes out the way you hope it will, but luckily we've been able to continue working with Naughty Dog and help make that a better experience for the fans.
Yeah, I remember the, let's call it Firestorm, when that version came out. And I know not the first one of those that Iron Galaxy's been involved in. I remember, I think it was the PC version of Arkham Knight had a lot of negative response to it. But, kind of from what I remember, it got pushed out, and, you guys kept working on it to, get it in a better state.
We are definitely always doing everything we can to make the best quality possible.
I suppose circumstances sometimes don't allow for that.
I mean, when you're making games, there's always so many different constraints, right? That no one has all of the control over. You have to think about your ship dates, think about what does your audience want, think about what the customer wants. There's so many different pieces that are moving all at one time, right? And so we're often one of those pieces in a big pie of a lot of different things that are going on.
Mhm. And what exactly is your expertise in bringing games to different platforms?
I mean, we've brought tons of games to different platforms. I would say it's one of the things we're most well known for at Iron Galaxy. We've we brought Borderlands to the Vita, which was a pretty amazing feat. We've done tons of ports to the Switch. We've done ports to console from PC to console. We've done ports to VR. So we have always done a ton of work in that space and we'll continue to do it.
Like, and does that differ from support work? Like, I saw like co-development and support listed on your website.
Sure. Yeah, it differs. Usually when we're doing a port, right, we're bringing something to a new console, like you said, or a different console, new console for the title. When we're doing support work, we could be doing kind of anything from squashing bugs, working on performance, doing art, working on the UI. We could be doing just anything that the IP holder wants us to work on.
Duly noted. And I guess I should wrap things up at this stage by asking, what are some of the projects you've been working on this year?
Oh gosh, we've been working on. I mean, we've been working on a ton of projects this year. A lot of things just aren't announced yet. But yeah, there are different times when we kind of go up and down a number of projects. Right now is one of the times we actually have the most projects going on at Iron Galaxy. So you'll be hearing a lot about them soon.
Intriguing. And we'll probably be in contact again when those are ready to be talked about.
Great.
Right. So I'll see if my colleagues here have any further questions for you.
I can't think of anything, but for anyone who just walked in, there will be a VOD of this cut probably Friday afternoon. So if you want to go through any of this, you'll be able to watch the VOD.
Like,
I think you asked everything I was thinking of.
fair enough. All right then. So yeah, I want to thank you too for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here tonight to talk about the very long and storied history of Iron Galaxy. It's been wonderful hearing about the various things that you've been working on, both original and port work. And I look forward to seeing what Iron Galaxy delivers in the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. All right, Petty, play us to the next segment. All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week, because we are still in not E3 times, we are going to be talking about this week our good friends at Limited Run Games, because they had their LRG3 event a few days ago. And if you're wondering what that stands for, it's a playoff of E3. Instead of E3, it's LRG3. Get it? It's not the third thing of something. Like,
brought it up in writing room on Friday. I was like, what the hell is he on about? And then I actually looked at it and I was like, oh, I'm a dumbass.
At least I don't think. Last year for their conference. Right. Anyway, they announced a whole bunch of stuff there.
I need to go find the list, don't I?
Probably, but just trying to take it all in. Just like where to start. I guess, some of the new carbon engine announcements surprised me. Like I was not expecting Fear Effect to show up.
No one expects Fear Effect to show up, and then it just happens again.
Well, there's a specific reason for this. Because Fear Effect been kind of difficult to bring to modernity. That has to do with because so the problem with a lot of old PlayStation 1 games is pre-rendering.
Mm-hmm.
Which
is the hardest thing to update.
Yeah. Though apparently GOG cracked the code because the original Resident Evil trilogy is, well, I suppose that's not being upscaled. That's the big issue with like pre-rendering. Fear Effect goes one step further because instead of having pre-rendered backgrounds, they have moving backgrounds that are composed of FMV.
Yep.
Which is even harder to upscale because it's moving.
Yeah. I'm like, and it's kind of hilarious because it's a looping FMV. So, and not very long because even though PlayStation discs could hold a lot more than, say, an N64 cart, you're still being limited by less than a gig. Mm-hmm. Which is why the Fear Effect games were like 4 discs each.
Actually, with later compression, you were at about a gig in usable space, but yeah.
The point is, what they were doing consumed a large amount of data for the time. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I have been in talks with our contact at Limited Run Games about a return appearance. We were kind of waiting for LRG3 to happen before things resumed. You remember her, Ariana. We interviewed her not too long ago. They want to send us somebody from the Carbon Engine team to talk about stuff.
It seems we are having some connection issues.
The connection issues where?
To Twitch.
Are we offline?
We aren't offline.
It looks fine to me.
It kept saying it was going to 0 for a second, then coming back, then going out, in and out.
Okay.
I'll keep an eye on it and let you know if it actually goes down.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so it looks like that's been cracked. Also showing up, the Fighting Force collection. It's funny because they brought up the factoid. This was the game that almost. It's like, did you know this almost became Streets of Rage 4? I'm like, why, yes. In fact, I told the development team who made the actual Streets of 4 that very factoid. That's on record, by the way.
Yep. I was there. I was witness.
I mean, it's recorded. It's a few years old. That was during the game's development, but it's there. Like, they didn't know that, by the way. And yeah, it's the Fighting Force collection because it's Fighting Force 1. That's the not Streets of Rage 4. And Fighting Force 2, the really horrible third-person action game. Kind of infamously terrible. I remember owning Fighting Force 1 because I got it for like $10.
Right.
It's a competent 3D fighting game brawler. Beat 'em up, whatever you want to call it. Yet I remember renting Fighting Force 2 and just being utterly disgusted. So yeah, just worth noting. But it's like the big troll announcement that they did this in 2023 with James Bond, and they had X show up. And for the record, I don't think actual James Bond games are going to be showing up at a limited run conference.
Oh God, no.
Mainly because do you know how and it's even more so now that GoldenEye has been released, because the next most wanted games are the PlayStation 2 EA games. Hint, those are going to be even more troublesome because they involve actor likenesses. Like, getting Everything or Nothing. You're going to have to get Pierce Brosnan to sign off on that because it's got his face. Let alone From Russia with Love. That was Sean Connery.
Yeah, good luck.
You're
going to need it.
Yeah, who's not even alive anymore.
Yeah, and
not to mention
his estate has been very reluctant to get a hold of for stuff like this.
Yep. I'm like,
and and whoever's in charge of the Bond IP is not super well inclined toward video games at this point.
A certain type of video game, as I understand it. It's like the current Broccoli family didn't like the whole FPS action framing of previous generations.
That's Bond why isn't an action movie.
That's completely untrue. It's just Bond does more than fire gun.
Fair.
I'm like, that's why it's in the hands of IO Interactive, the Hitman people. Because they want something closer to Hitman these days. Which, okay, fair enough. It's just, what were you going to do back in the PlayStation 2 era, let alone the N64?
Right.
That kind of gameplay experience was being invented during those times. But anyway, getting back to what limited run games had on display here, they announced the Bubsy collection. I'm like, being helmed by Bubsy superfan Audi Sortel, who, if I'm remembering correctly,
the sentence you just made.
It's also true. He's a legitimate. He's claimed that Bubsy saved his life, literally. Do not ask me.
Yeah, we're moving on.
I'm like, but as far as I can tell, the Bubsy collection is going to be Bubsy 1, Bubsy 2, Bubsy 2 for the Game Boy, and Bubsy 3D. Which actually leaves a couple of Bubsies out. Super Bubsy for the PC, and Bubsy in Fractured Furry Tales for the Jaguar.
I forgot they had one for the Jaguar.
Most people do. And maybe that's being saved for, I don't know, the expanded Atari 50, because I'm like Digital Eclipse made an Jaguar emulator.
Yeah, that was just in the Jaguar emulator Digital Eclipses thing.
Yeah, I'm like, I think they made it open source, but even if that's the case,
yeah, well, that's one of those things we did forget to ask about when we had them on the show.
No, I remember them mentioning it when we had them on the show. But here's the thing: even if it's open source, it doesn't mean another company can use it.
Yeah.
Like other companies have gotten in trouble for this, like ScumVM. Like a couple of humongous games, like on the Wii, use ScumVM as its source base. Let's say
'cause it's open
And
source for
with-
non-commercial use.
yes. I'm like,
So like you and I, who are just a hobbyist screwing around with it, can go grab it. But if Limited Run
Yeah.
wanted to put it in the Carbon engine, they would need to pay some kind of license.
right. So that. Anyway, I think we need to wrap this up for
Yep.
now.
That's what I was going to
because-
say. Am I late?
Nah,
no,
you're early.
You're early.
Oh,
We're finishing up the first show of the evening. Like,
my apologies.
It's fine.
it's fine.
We had to
It's
wrap up
happened
anyway.
before.
We were getting lost in the discussion.
Yeah. Like I said, a whole bunch more happened there. Maybe we'll cover it on MSP. Speaking of which, coming up on the week ahead, stay tuned in about, let's say, 45 minutes because Mac is back. And with that, he not just showing up, but we have the extended pre-show with him. Point is, we tend to get started at 11:30, more than 11 o'clock these days. But we do have a new MSP happening soon. No Friday show for Fragments this week. And coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews for 3x64, Underspace, Venatrix, and Perfect Dice. So until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.